grappling, you're going to want to get that as high as possible. But for something like crafting, if you're just kind of like, fixing a shield, something basic, it's just going to become easier and easier for you. So it's a good way to get it. So yeah.
Okay. So we got crafting. I checked the box.
You got crafting.
Yep.
Now, class. Now we'll go back to more of the nitty-gritty of class, but for right now, the class will always have one of its main stats. And this is always what its class DC is based on, and also if you're a spellcasting class, it's also what your spellcasting proficiency is. Now, that might be a little confusing, but basically, certain class abilities will use a class DC. It's mainly for martial classes, and then spellcasters, have their spellcasting one.
Right.
So basically, for a sorcerer, it's charisma. So you just get a single boost for that class. So you just want to pump up charisma to 16.
All right, got it.
Nice. And then you just get 4 free boosts. So you could put these into anything. So obviously you want to put your fourth one of them into charisma, right?
Oh, so that breaks that rule where you can't put an extra boost in.
Well, no, this is a separate stage now.
It's a separate stage. Okay.
Yes, there's 4 stages to adding these abilities. So, you can pump up charisma to 18. And now you have 3 more left.
So from a recommendation standpoint, obviously, when do you get your first pluses? Did you say it's at when you have
12.
Ability score of 12? Okay.
Yeah. So it's tough right now because you're kind of spread out a little bit. But like I said, Dex is very good for acrobatics is a good way to get out of things. It's also your reflex saves, which can help you. It also affects your AC. So to have kind of a better AC, you'd want to put one into Dex. Con can be really good. It's your fortitude save. It gives you more HP. But, you kind of like intelligence, right? You might want to put one more into intelligence because
that's what I was thinking.
You like crafting. And then there's also always wisdom, but maybe you just don't have much to wisdom and you're just not going to be as good at, will saves and kind of like the wisdom-based things. So that's fine.
Well, I put 1 in charisma, 1 in dex, 1 in intelligence, and I have 1 left over, which is, I guess it's just a toss up. We'll go with constitution.
Yeah, you're always good. You're always safe with that.
All right. I like this fillable sheet. It's working out okay.
Yeah, it's nice. Cool.
All right.
So I wanted to jump back quickly to the artist background. We never finished that. So you also get trained in the art lore skill. So if you look on there's some empty spaces there for a lore. You can put in art lore, and then you'll be trained in that.
Yep, got it.
Then you also get the specialty crafting skill feat. So you can just write that if there's a section there for skill feats. Well, we're not going to write it out what it actually is.
I got skill feats on the second page. Yep.
Perfect. And just put in right now specialty crafting. Now what that's going to give you is that basically gives you a +1 circumstance bonus. There's a lot of different types of bonuses. I'm not going to get into them now, but basically there's like circumstance status. There's like untyped, and then there's also item bonuses. What that means is that you can never have more than one of the same type of bonus. So this is a +1 circumstance bonus to crafting checks for these specific craft items. Now, there's a lot of different ones, but there is an artistry. What type of artist were you? I mean, they list things here: alchemy, artistry, blacksmithing, bookmaking, glassmaking, leatherworking, pottery, shipbuilding, stonemasonry, tailoring, weaving, woodworking. Kind of sounds like you were thinking about artistry, or one of those other ones tickle your fancy?
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of like physical art itself.
Like painting,
statues, metals, the metal, putting together metal, it's artwork, artwork.
So
sculpture, different kinds of sculptures, not necessarily working with stone or anything, but, putting different things together. Yeah, fine art.
Okay, so then there'll be artistry. Artistry lists fine art, including jewelry. I mean, there's stonemasonry, but it doesn't sound like you're doing that.
So we've got artistry.
So basically,
then.
You're going to do specialty crafting as one of your skill feats, and then put like a colon and then artistry. So basically, that means is whenever you do crafting with art, you'll get a +1 bonus. Now, this is not the most, like, from a mechanical standpoint, this is not the most useful thing, but you can actually do stuff during downtime. You can actually use this to get income. So you can actually make money selling art. And because this +1 is going to be really good for that. So this is kind of a cool thing that you can still do during your downtime. This could also help you later on, with, looking up art. Like, what you can use crafting and, like, about getting art history. I'm sure nice GMs will let you use this for your art history lore or whatever, or how is that made. So,
and it's my concept. I wasn't worried about the mechanical advantages.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make art. You can use that for certain things. This just gives you a bonus, so you're just better off. The +1, it's like an extra intelligence.
I can see at some point, coming into the court and being able to leverage that to, recognize the tapestry as, fine and, the value of it, stuff. I can figure lots of stuff I could
for
figure
sure.
out, so, yeah.
And this is specifically for, like, making art, but it's still a cool thing that you could do. I mean, you could always have something like where you'll distract the Duchess by painting her while you're
exactly.
party. Yeah, so
I'll draw her like one of the French girls. Okay, yeah.
Awesome. So we've gotten all that sorted away. Now let's before we jump to, you still have to take an ancestry feat. But before we even get to that, let's jump to your class, because we haven't done one of the most important things in here.
The most important thing.
What bloodline do you want? Now, when you're kind of looking at them, there's a lot here, right? There's a lot of different bloodlines. You can kind of look at this like, oh, well, I like their cool, like their bloodline spells and the blood magic. So we'll talk about Sorcerer a little bit. Each Sorcerer bloodline will get access to a specific spell list. Remember, we talked about the 4 spell lists.
Right.
And if you have some questions about that, they'll get 2 trained skills based on their bloodline. They get granted spells. They get specific spells at every level. So you'll start with a specific cantrip and a first level spell that you kind of just have to know, along with the other spells that you'll take. And then as they level up, instead of the other ones, which might, be able to choose which ones they take, you always kind of have to take one of these spells. Now, sometimes this is good. Sometimes this will be like a spell that's not in your spell list, which is actually a cool way to get something that's kind of different. But that's, and then, so there's also bloodline spells. Now, bloodline spells, you'll get the initial one, which is like what we talked about before, is a focus spell. So each one will have its own, like, you'll start with a focus spell and get a focus point. That all kind of do different things. And then later on, you can use a class feat to get the other higher ones. And then there's a blood magic section. Now, the blood magic is whenever you use one of your focus spells, your bloodline spells, or one of your granted spells that uses a spell slot, so not a cantrip, but something like, one of those ones, you get a little bonus. So there's like a mechanical side to that. There's also just like a straight, what is the flavor of it that you want to do? So there's a lot of stuff to consider here. There's the spell list, there's the flavor, there's kind of the like special abilities that each one get. So I guess like just your gut, what kind of spellcaster did you see you want to do? There's ones that are more like healing or divine, right? Support based, or that deal with that. There's kind of primal, which has a lot of good damage spells and a lot of nature based ones, but they also do like walls and damage and some heals too. They're a very diverse set. Occult, which is a lot of cool like debuffs and mental spells, and a lot of ones with like gathering information. There's also like arcane, which is basically gets ones from all of them, but doesn't have as many specific ones, but that has a lot of stuff like where you can modify yourself or just how did you see it? Is there any bloodlines that called out to you or?
So kind of the elemental.
Oh, okay.
Power of elements manifest as primal spells.
So the elemental one is probably the best damage-based one, hands down. If you want to be good at damaging, you cannot do better than elemental. It's probably the best damaging one in the game. Spellcaster. Okay. For a couple different reasons. If you're cool with that, then we can go with it.
Sure.
If you want to check out some of the other ones. Okay, so you like the elemental one. So the elemental one, your bloodlines infuse with a specific, a specific type of element from the elemental plane. So fire, water, earth, or air. Now, your spell list is primal. It's kind of nature-y based. You'll get intimidation and nature as your kind of skills. Now, nature is going to be a wisdom-based skill for you. But how you kind of told me your concept, you kind of came into this later in life anyways, right? So
Yes.
I definitely see this. This is a cool thing. So the cool thing with elemental is beyond now you're choosing your first, this is your bloodline. You have to choose a specific type of what element is infused your blood. Now, this elemental is actually one of the only ones that gives you this extra step. Their cool thing is that, like, if you look at their granted spells like Produce Flame or Burning Hands or Fireball, and then also their bloodline spells, those all change depending on what thing that you, like what element that you chose. So usually Burning Hands would be fire-based. If you chose, wind, so basically it does fire if you chose fire, and for any of the other three, it'll just do bludgeoning because it's like rocks or air.
So it's it's like it changes the trappings, but the mechanical
it changes the trapping, which has mechanical things. Depending on weaknesses or resistances. It also gives you like if you look at the advanced bloodline spell later on, this is a higher up thing, but basically elemental motion will give you different like movement types. So fire and air will give you flying speed. Earth will give you a burrow speed, which is actually very unique. It's very hard to get burrowing. And then water will give you a swim speed, and you can breathe underwater. So that's what kind of it gives you there. Again, I think it really just like what tickles your fancy, right? What element tickles your fancy?
I was trying to picture how this kind of manifested itself, being that this person's kind of an artist or tries or wanted to be an artist, and I'm kind of feeling for some reason I just feel water,
Okay.
So I'm not sure why, but it feels
he uses
right.
Watercolor.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know. It just felt right.
He does ocean.
I'll write
go with it.
I'll write the backstory later, but it just felt right to go with the water. So
okay.
Fire would have been the easy choice, right? Because then you're talking,
Passion. I mean, I can see air too. But yeah, if you're painting is your main thing, is that what you're kind of going with now? Is like painting?
Yeah,
is kind of your main. Yeah, water. I definitely can see that. Like, that's really cool. So I would put in.
It's really cool. You're actually thinking to yourself, God, that's so stupid.
No, not at all. I think it's cool. Put sorcerer, and you could put primal. Elemental sorcerer, and then you could put water in like parentheses maybe. So that'll then give you, being an elemental sorcerer, you'll get you'll be trained in intimidation and nature.
Intimidation and nature. Intimidation trained. Nature trained. Okay.
Okay. So now, did you want to jump back to your ancestry feat right now, or did you want to go through all of the class stuff right now?
So what are we looking at time here? We're about an hour or so in. So let's go and
we could just cut it up if you wanted.
Yeah. But so let's finish something. Very specific.
Okay,
so
let's jump back to the ancestry real quickly because there's a lot more to us. You have to take spells and you have to look at all that stuff. So,
right.
So basically, let's jump and look at the different feats. There's a lot of different feats here.
Yeah, we're just
a
trying
lot
to
of cool feats. Primal Primal has some really good damage cantrips, so you don't have to worry about that. You're already good with damage. Human ones can give you you can get different cantrips if you wanted. There's so many here. I am going to call out though, because you chose that specific bloodline, because damage is kind of going to be your main thing. You don't have to, but that's really the elemental is kind of the best damage one, because I don't know if you saw your bonus that you get is that you get extra damage. When you use like Fireball, you get extra damage, and that's untyped, right? So, as I said before, humans and half-elves get a special thing called it's called Natural Ambition, which lets you take another level 1 class feat. If we go to Sorcerer, one of their level 1 feats is called Dangerous Sorcery, which basically, when you cast a spell from your spell slots, and you deal damage, doesn't have a duration, you get a status bonus to that spell's damage equal to the spell's level. So this, and you don't have to go this route. There's a lot of other cool level 1 sorcerer feats that you could take, but this is just one of the options that this would actually give you even more damage when you use a spell slot. So that fireball, which would give you, a +3 damage, basically, from your bloodline ability, this would actually give it another +3 damage on top of that. So you'll just be pumping out the damage. Some of the other cool things that you could take, if we're just looking at like sorcerer spells, this is a really good way to pick up a familiar too.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
If you, instead of going for the damage route, you can go with the familiar route, which has a lot of cool things, because familiars you can kind of build. One of the cool things that familiars can do is actually give you back another focus spell as an action. They can also do a lot of cool stuff. So
cool.
And again, you can, at level 2, you could take one of these as well. At level 2, you'll get a class feat. So you could always plan, okay, at level 2, I'll pick up the destruction one, or level 2, I'll pick up a familiar. There's also enhanced familiars. You can get more of that. So there's a lot of options here, but...
well, let's go with something that, again, we can't go through all of them, but let's go with the one that gives me the damage buff.
Okay.
So what was that one called?
So as your ancestry feat, you're going to put down, just to track it, you'll put down, and onto your first level ancestry feat, you'll put down, I just said it before.
And this is under this is the special, in the special category.
This is going to be under, ancestry.
Ancestry feats and abilities.
Not special, feat 1.
Feat 1. Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay. Feat first.
Yeah, feat
All
first. Right. You're going to put natural ambition.
Okay.
And that means you get a free, class feat. And then we'll go immediately to your class feats, and you're going to put down dangerous sorcery.
Nice. Okay.
Under feat 1. Yeah.
Oh, that's feature 1. Feat 1, sorry. I put it in the right spot.
I don't know what the feature 1 is for. I mean, that's for class features. Which you do have them, but we're just putting down the feat. So so basically all that now we have to deal with is your class stuff.
Okay, let's go do that.
Okay, so we can do this a bunch of different ways. I think the first thing to do is if you look at a class, they'll give you a bunch of stuff. So we'll start at the top. You got initial proficiencies. You'll start trained in perception. Now, perception in this game is not a skill that you can take on its own. Every class starts with a different level in it and will automatically get bonuses to it. There is a general feat later that allows you to become expert in it or above it later, but it's much hard. It's not like other games where you could just take, notice, keep going down notice. It kind of, each class, it's more tied into the class. So you start trained in perception.
Got it.
So that's going to be up at the top there.
Yep.
And again, you'll have, later on you'd have to fit in, wisdom is 0, and then proficiency is 2, and you have no items. So that'll give you your total. That'll give you a total.
When we get all done here, we'll probably
fill it out
at some.
Off-screen.
Another episode we'll clean up the sheet, make it perfect and beautiful.
So saving throws, you'll start trained in fortitude and trained reflex. Now this is all in the sorcerer class thing, and expert in will. So, everybody pretty much will start trained in everything, and then some people have expert in things. Like the monk starts with just expert in everything, but you'll only be expert in will.
And that gives the +4 versus the +2.
But yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then skills, you're trained in one or more skills determined by your bloodline. We already did that. It's intimidation and nature. Now you get trained in a number of skills equal to 2, which is very low, plus your intelligence modifier. So I believe you have...
repeat that? Get in what?
Okay, sorry. So each class will list out, it might list out what skills you get, and then it'll always list out a number of skills plus your intelligence modifier. So like Ranger will give you survival and nature +4 plus your intelligence.
Right.
Sorcerer, you get those 2 skills that you took for your bloodline, which was intimidation and nature. And then you get 2 plus your intelligence modifier, so very low. Sorcerers don't get a lot of skills, but you have a 14 intelligence, right?
Yes.
So now you have a total of 4 free skills. Now, I don't know if this is a good time for me to briefly go over the skills.
Sure, why not?
Okay. And like, so I think we can always just cut this video up if it goes too
Yeah,
long.
I can cut it in half. That's
Okay.
fine.
So we'll start with acrobatics. This is tied to dex. Now, one thing to quickly call out to anybody, if they've, I don't know, you've looked at this and if you've played 5e or whatever, there's way more stuff for each skill. So each skill will have untrained actions. That means that anybody can do them. So in Pathfinder, there's just a lot more specific skills, and then there's like basically what happens on a success or what happens on a failure, or what happens on a crit success. Each one's more listed out. And it definitely takes away a lot of that, like, oh, what happens in this instance or not. It kind of really gives you a specific thing. And then there's trained actions. A trained action means you have to be trained in the skill to actually do it. You can't even attempt it if you're not trained. So acrobatics lets you do stuff like the untrained are balance and tumble through. Balance is to balance on a ledge. Tumble through is to jump through people to get through enemies. And the trained actions are to maneuver in flight and to squeeze to go through small spaces. But another big thing that acrobatics is good for is to get out of like being grabbed. If you're grappled or grabbed, just like in kind of Savage Worlds, you can kind of use acrobatics to get out of that. So it's good if you have some dex to want to get out of that. Next is Arcana. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Arcana is one of the big 4 knowledge skills, I guess. And they're all kind of be used for knowledge, but there's a couple of general skills in the game that's called recall knowledge, and recall knowledge can be used with a lot of different things. But most creatures will have to do with 4 or 5, I guess, if we include crafting with alchemy. Kind of like each creature will have, you have to have Arcana or nature to be kind of know about it. And in this game, recalling knowledge about creatures is very powerful because there's so many different types of creatures that have different abilities and weaknesses that it's very powerful to have that at your beck and call. It's also the way that you kind of learn magic or identify magic is with this. So for you, it's a little tricky because you have no wisdom, but nature is the primal, is the one that's tied to primal, and that's the one that if you want to identify magic, then you would use that. But again, you're doing your thing. You came into this later in life. That's your jam. So Arcana is it's connected to Arcane, the Arcane spellcasting. Go figure. And that does a lot of stuff with that. Identifying that, decipher writing about it, recalling knowledge about arcanic creatures. Moving on to athletics. Athletics is a big one. Athletics allows you to climb, leap, the force open, grapple, high jump, long jump, shove, swim, trip attacks. It also allows you to disarm. So it kind of has all these. It's a really fun one for martial characters because you can do all this cool stuff like shoving or tripping. It also for climbing or swimming, anything like that. That's what it's good for. Moving on to crafting. So crafting is to recall knowledge about alchemical creatures. You can earn income. You can also make stuff, right? Obviously. You can also repair with it. You can craft with it. You can identify alchemy. So for you, you liked having this. Deception and crafting is connected to intelligence. I should say Arcana is connected to intelligence. Athletics is connected to strength. Deception is connected to charisma. It's how it's trickery. It's creating a diversion, impersonating, lying, and feinting, which is the trained action, which is an in-combat thing. So if you want to be kind of sneaky in a social way, then you definitely want deception. Moving on to diplomacy. This is also obviously tied to charisma. It allows you to, make people like you better, request favors of them, and also to gather information. There's a social mode that allows you to gather information in places, and you can use diplomacy with that. Intimidation is the opposite. This is one that you automatically become trained in. You can coerce people or demoralize them. So coercing is kind of like the social part of it, where you can get people to tell you stuff, and then demoralize is an in-combat thing that can cause frightened, which you'll actually be pretty good at right now because you're trained and you have a high charisma. So if I know you don't see yourself as scary, but you can almost lean into that if you wanted to. The lore skill, which you can only take through, you can't just take it whenever. You actually have to, but you can always add stuff to it. But anyways, that's very specific. It's about recalling knowledge and earning income, but it's very specific. So for you, you have art lore. But it can be anything like, circus lore or herbalism lore or scouting lore. Medicine is the main skill with first aid, treating disease, treating poison, treating wounds. So this is the main one for, I said, all that out of combat healing or stopping bleeding or dealing with wounds. It's very powerful. You always want somebody who's good at medicine, and that's connected to wisdom. Moving on to nature, this is the main skill that's connected with the primal spellcasting, which you have. So a lot of stuff involving that. It also allows you to command an animal. So if you later on, you could take skill feats that would help you with animals, and then you would, that's what you use nature for that. You can also do stuff with nature. As I said, there's a cool skill feat you can take, which you can use it for first aid if you wanted to. There's a lot of skill feats that allow you to use a skill in a different way. Moving on to occultism, this is the one that's tied to occult. That's pretty much all it's good for, is that, recalling knowledge about creatures that have a connection to the occult, like outer planes, stuff like that, where nature would be more about recalling knowledge about fauna, flora, weather, or things like fae and plants and beasts, stuff like that. Or elements, the elemental planes like yours. Moving on to performance. Performance is a tricky one. You can earn income with it, and you can do the perform action, which doesn't really do much. Really, bards get the most out of this. Most other classes don't get really that much use out of it, but you can always take it if you wanted to. You can earn income with it. Then there's religion, which is tied to divine spellcasting. It's also about religions. If you want to recall knowledge about religions, this is one you would take, and about stuff like undead or demons or celestials, positive, negative planes, stuff like that. Moving on to society. Now, society is an interesting one. It's an intelligence skill. Religion was tied to wisdom, so not intelligence. So that's a cool thing about this, is that occult and arcana are tied to intelligence, but nature and religion are tied to wisdom. So you don't actually have to be like really bookish, intelligence-based. It goes with the spellcasting classes. Society is used to kind of recall knowledge about like history and about cultures and about, it's the academics basically, and about like, about cities, and you can actually use it to subsist in a city. Subsisting is how you kind of like live during downtime, like get resources, get food, stuff like that. You can also use society to create a forgery. I mean, again, there's so many skill feats. You can use society
to forge documents?
That's what you would do. Yeah, you would use society for that.
Okay, society would be for
stealth. Stealth's pretty easy, right? Sneaking and hiding, also concealing things. Tied to dex. Survival is how you, track. You cover your own tracks. It's also used for sensing direction, and it's for subsisting in the wild. And then finally, thievery. Thievery is how you steal things from people, disable traps, palm things, stuff like that, and that's tied to dexterity. So that was a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot there, sure.
Any questions, or just move on to, you have 4 free skills you want to take.
So how much does thievery cover as far as, the old D&D saws? I mean, it includes identifying traps, disabling traps, pickpocketing, all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I mean,
thievery is for pickpocketing, thievery is for dismantling traps. As far as, you said something, I would almost say crafting might be used for recall knowledge about traps, probably. Again, it's tied to dexterity, so yeah.
Okay. And then, how many lores can you have? The sheet gives you 2. Can you have?
You could have a lot of lores. There's actually, I would recommend that if you wanted to take another lore, there's a really cool skill feat called additional lore, that it gives you a lore skill that automatically goes up in ranks as you level up. So that's a really cool way. Like, I took cooking as my character as one of those because I really wanted to be good at cooking, but I didn't have crafting, right? So I took that. So I probably don't recommend you use one of your things to take a lore, just because the general skills. So just looking them over, right? I don't know. I mean, you are a charisma-based guy, so you do have intimidation. But did diplomacy or deception kind of appeal to you?
Deception kind of appealed to me.
Okay.
Not so much. I don't know, diplomacy, but deception. I feel like I would,
You're a good liar and good at making disguises and.
Yep. I think that'd be. All right.
So put trained in that. You have 3 more left.
3 more left. Well, I don't know what
stealth is always good.
That's what I was thinking. I'm looking at stealth as a good one. Athletics, should that be something that's considered, or is that kind of more?
I mean, you
special?
could. I mean, having a trained in it, again, just putting trained in something will give you like the +2. I mean, you don't have any strength, but it'll give you that +2, but then it'll also give you your level. So basically, athletics is good for, I mean, eventually you won't really need to swim. You'll have that focus ability maybe, but like for swimming, for climbing, for jumping, if you want to be more physical based,
Boring.
Acrobatics is more for like, balancing, but it can also be good. It might be good to have acrobatics just so you can escape grapples, because if you get grappled, it'll be really bad.
All right.
But that's
okay.
just, that's up to you. I mean,
So 1, 2, so that's 3. So I got one more, right? 4.
Oh, you took stealth? Yeah.
I took stealth, I took deception, I took acrobatics, and now...
So there's a bunch there. I mean, I almost think, like, here's some cool ideas. I mean, you said thievery could be a cool idea, but society might be a cool one with you, just because, like, you kind of grew up in the city, right? You're like an artist. You sell things. So society might be a good one. It's based on intelligence, but you have a not bad score in intelligence. You said diplomacy doesn't really fit.
Yeah, let's go with society. Yeah, I think I like where you're going from. So, I mean,
okay.
All right, cool. So we got
now
that.
You also, let's finish it off with languages. So as a human, as a half elf, as a human, you just basically get you get common plus your intelligence plus a free one. So I would assume your free one would be Elvish.
All right, so I got human. Right? Human is a language.
Just say common. It's just common.
So it's just common. Yeah. Okay.
Common, and then you get. So every single thing will say common, and then additional language. So humans get additional language equal to 1 plus your intelligence modifier. So,
and I've got a 14
I would think that
in
one of
my intelligence.
So you have 3 languages you can learn. So basically,
Elvish, and I'll put some question marks. I guess
Elvish,
Have to
It'd
think
be a
about
list
that
of
one.
common languages and any languages which you have access to, like languages in your region, right? But then you could also argue to the GM, like maybe you'd want to know. I believe there's like an elemental one or something, because like you just kind of learned it as with your awakening, right?
There's an elemental language.
Yeah, I mean they all have, like 5e has it. I think in this one it's maybe it's primordial. Is that in this one? Nope, that's not in here.
I don't know. I'm just learning.
Oh, there is Aquan. So I think that's what it'd be. Aquan is like the water elemental one.
How do you spell that?
Aquan.
Aquan. Okay.
And then I could see you maybe took just like gnomish or something, or like something like that. Like you probably maybe dealt with like gnomes who liked your art, or halflings or something like that, right? Like, or a regional, like depending. So whatever
Sounds good.
Whatever.
Sounds good. I like gnomish. That's because they're still tinker folks in this setting, right?
They can be, yeah. I mean, they're very interesting in this setting. So while in 5e, like the elves were kind of the Fae connection, gnomes are actually the ones that are connected to Fae in this one.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
But they're very outgoing, because if they never stop like learning and stuff, they get this thing called the bleaching, I think it's called, where they like lose all their color and they kind of lose all motivation to do anything. Because they're kind of from they're originally their race was originally from the realm of the First World, which is the Feywild. Anyways, it's a really cool lore.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. That's neat.
So I think that was the overall basics. Did you have any other? I mean, do you have any? This is a good time for questions.
Boy, there's a lot of stuff here. So we walk through. Let's just kind of pick the class, background, ancestry.
Yeah.
That drove our ability scores. It drove our list of skills.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a couple of other things we got to do. I just remembered. You got to finish out your hit points.
All right, I got 8 hit points to start with. So.
You start with 8, and then your class. And again, this is, you don't roll for hit. You can, but the core rules, you don't roll. You just basically that that 8 just stays there. That it never is affected. And then Sorcerer, you'll get a certain amount of hit points. And Sorcerers have 6 plus your con modifier every level. So because your con is 0, you'll just get plus 6 every level. So you just add. You put
well, my
6
con
in
is
there.
12. My constitution is 12.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you'll start with 7. So if you go on the sheet, I believe it'll have a hit points. It'll have your.
It'll just say it just says max current temporary.
Oh, there has to be a place to put that.
No, not on this sheet that I don't see, but.
Well, there's a place for it somewhere, but Anyways, so interesting. So right now your max right now would be 8 plus 7, so 15 is your max.
Oop, gotta put it in the right spot.
And then your armor class, you're gonna add. You're actually trained in unarmored.
So I put trained as far as.
And unarmored.
Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Trained and unarmored. Okay, got it.
And then
Here, let me.
and then attacks. You're trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks.
Armor
that'll be
class,
down in
attacks.
Weapon proficiencies. If you go to the bottom, you see it's a simple there. Just put trained in simple because unarmed stacks with simple.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so I mean the final thing to do would be go through all your spell casting stuff, but I don't know if you want to do that now or we can just do that and we can edit it out.
Well, I think spell casting we can. Let's do something later on that, but also related to spells in general. Because there's a lot to learn there, right? I mean,
yeah,
a whole bunch to learn there. I think so. Unless you think it's simple to do it, then.
Well, I mean, at the very least, your class would give you, it gives you produce flame.
All right, hold on.
As one of your cantrips.
So I've got my spell slots. All right, so I got a spell section on the sheet.
If you go to the spell section, it'll go down to cantrips right there.
Yep.
First thing you would do is put your spell attack roll. So that's going to be your key plus your proficiency. So your
spell attack roll is key. Okay.
So the key is going to be 4 because that's charisma.
Right.
Click the little train button, and that means your proficiency is actually going to be 3. Because remember, proficiency is always going to be your level plus your proficiency, like I forget what it's called, but basically like trained or expert. So it's going to be 2 plus 1, so it's going to be 3. So then your spell attack roll from the start right now is going to be 4 plus 3. It's going to be 7.
Okay. And then
your spell DC is pretty much the same. Just put everything out, but it's 10 plus that, so it's going to be 17. So your spell attack roll is when you roll an attack roll. That's what you use to add on top of the D20, and your DC is once you force somebody to roll one of their saving throws. Then you're going to click on Primal.
Problem with the
Tradition.
sheet. Problem with the sheet. Does not allow me to type a 17 in. Okay.
Oh,
beautiful.
Sorry, then it says a 7 equals. I don't know. It's a weird sheet. I mainly use Play Online, so.
All right. Well,
I could put 17 in under spell DC.
Yeah, it might be the fact that I'm not using Acrobat. So, all right. Well, anyway, let's imagine I did it. So, okay.
So 17. You're going to click on Primal, and you're going to click Spontaneous.
Okay.
Because you're a spontaneous caster. Now, your first cantrip is you get Produce Flame.
Produce Flame.
And this would be something when you're looking at damage, it actually does. It's going to do bludgeoning instead of the fire, what it would normally do. But you don't need to worry about that. Just put in Produce Flame as one of your cantrips. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So then, if we go to I'm gonna go to the Sorcerer section right now. We'll go back to the thing here. Okay. So your spell casting. So you actually start with 5 cantrips, and you have to. That's one of your ones that you have to take. And then you start with 3 spell slots. Now it's kind of confusing, but it's also, I think it's easy. Is that basically you get with sorcerers, you get like basically the amount of spell slots that you get is how many spells that you start with, and whenever you get a new spell slot, you get another spell. But with sorcerers, every new spell level, like at 3 and then at 5 and then 7, you get a new spell level. You have to take one of your bloodline spells. It gives you it automatically. So what I mean is that you're going to have 5 cantrips and 3 spells to choose from. But then because you're a sorcerer, one of your cantrips has to be Produce Flame. And then one of your spells is... what is it? Let's go to the bloodlines. And... the elemental one is going to be Burning Hands.
Okay. All right.
And
So
again, yeah. Sorry.
and well, you're saying I've got 3. There's 2 others I can pick.
Yeah. So you have 4 cantrips to choose from, and also 4 new spells. Now, elemental's a little weird because you chose elemental. This Burning Hands gives you like a bludgeoning. Now, I'm pretty sure you can actually take Burning Hands again if you wanted to, and take it so it gives you fire damage, but you don't have to do that, and that's something I don't recommend it necessarily. I'm just saying that you can actually take it again.
Okay.
But this is just kind of specific to elemental sorcerers, so maybe don't even worry about it. But yeah, so let's look at cantrips. So I'm on Nethes, and I'm going to go to a primal cantrips. And so you already got a pretty good one, Produce Flame, with your bludgeoning. Now, if you wanted another attack cantrip, one of the best ones in the game is actually called Electric Arc. And Electric Arc is cool is because it actually enables you to hit more than one person at a time. And it's a saving throw one. So the Produce Flames will use your spell attack, and this will use a spell save. So if you want to kind of get another one and kind of mix up damage a little bit, that would be a good one to take. But you could also take like Acid Splash, which is actually another cool one. It gives you the persistent damage or something like that. So I don't know if you wanted to take another.
Let's go with Acid Splash.
Cool.
Okay, so that's 2 I've got.
That's 2. So another really cool cantrip I want to call out that Primal and Divine have access to is called Guidance. And that'll give you or anybody else a +1 to like the next thing that they do. Skill or attack roll or anything. And it's only 1 action.
Oh, okay.
So it's a really cool thing to have in your wheelhouse. Very flexible.
Well, since I'm not really having a chance to go and read all these, I'm just going to take some of your guidance on this, and we'll go with Guidance.
But on Ching.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be here all the week.
Now, for your other 2, there's a lot of cool things you could do. Getting something to have like a light is really cool because you only have low light and it's kind of brutal. But there's also cool ones in here like, I always like having a role-playing cantrip. So something like Prestidigitation.
Now, I watched you. I watched you in one of your online games where you had something like that, Prestidigitation, and you were using it all the time. So interesting.
You can do cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's another cool one in one of the primal ones is my internet's trying to slow down. Is Detect Magic or Read Aura. So if it doesn't seem it's going to be a good way that you're kind of a spellcaster, so it might be good to have one of those to, is there magic around, or what kind of magic is. So you could take both if you want to be really good at it, but maybe just take Detect Magic just
I'm
to
gonna take Detect Magic. That's all I'm taking. All right.
And you have one more, I believe, right?
Yep.
So yeah, if you wanted to take a Prestidigitation, you could take Tanglefoot, which kind of reduces people's speed. You could take Light. You could take No Direction, which at first isn't good, but later on gets really good at higher levels. But Stabilize. You could stabilize a dying creature. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put a question mark. I haven't figured that one out, so we'll put a question mark. Yeah. So let's talk about the spell slots then.
So you have 2 more spells now. There's a lot. What kind of did you see your guy doing? Like he has Burning Hands, right? He has like a good AoE damage spell. So did you want to kind of now so Primal actually gets access to Heal, which is also the Divine also gets access to kind of the main healing spell if you wanted that.
Oh yeah, I'd love to have a healing.
Throw Heal in. Heal is really cool because you can use it as a 1 action, 2 action, or 3 action. spell. It's a really cool one. One action would just be a touch spell. The 2 action would be get ranged, and it will actually get more healing. And then the 3 action heals everybody in a burst. And you can also use it offensively against things like undead. So it's a really cool multi-purpose thing.
So what do they got here? I'm looking at the spell list.
There's a lot there. I mean,
yeah, there's tons.
Because you're a water base, but you could go with like air bubble right now. I mean, it's not the most strong, but it's something you could kind of go down more like hydraulic push or jump. Jump's actually a really cool. So I actually like jump a lot. Kind of gives you a 30-foot jump for one action, which can be helpful sometimes, or increase your speed, or there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, Primal has a really good spell list, I think. It's probably my favorite one.
So what does hydraulic push do as far as damage go? I'm just looking at the spell summary.
Hydraulic push. Sorry, it's very slow right now. Get out my main book because the the online thing isn't. Here, I have it right here. Okay. Hydraulic push. So it gives you like a 60-foot range. Basically, it'll do bludgeoning damage, which you already kind of do with, you have burning hands, but with bludgeoning damage. But it also knocks back. So it's probably not the best spell because you already kind of have a damaging spell, right?
Yeah. I see that now.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of just filling out what else you want to kind of do.
All right,
Maybe
so I'll put one more question mark there.
Sure. Yeah, you would just take another spell there.
Yeah. And this would be probably where it looks at what the other members of the party are and what they're going, and then sort of find something that aligns pretty well there with them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice. All right, so I got my character mostly done. Got a couple of things left
we would just have to fill in numbers and stuff, but
yeah, for sure.
So any final questions or thoughts or?
Well, my thoughts are that I'm kind of dumb in the fact that there's a lot of material here that I still don't. There's multiple levels of indirection. Well, you take this feat, and that lets you take a feat over here, it's still, again, this game's still a little foreign to me. So I get it. I think you did a good job of walking through sort of the pieces, and I think now somebody who's watched a video can get into the book and go, okay, I get. It all makes sense that I need to have one of these and one of those, and they add in a certain way, and they come together, and I think that's great. Do you have any, advice for a player who's creating their first character, gotchas or anything like that? Because I don't know if this is like, is there a way to build just a nerfed class? You go down the wrong path, and now you're ineffective. Is there anything somebody should watch out for?
For sure. I mean, I think they did a good job where kind of curb-tailing, like min-maxing and also like nerfing a character. I mean, most people are going to be relatively pretty relevant. And again, it depends on the campaign you're going. But yeah, to your point, I mean, have your concept, right? And then kind of and then build it out from there because there's just so many feats and abilities. But yeah, as far as not nerfing, I mean, what does your class do? Like for combat, at least, like what does your class do? Like you definitely want your class, whatever your class ability is, whatever it gives you, that you just want to start with that at an 18. Like start with, especially if you're a spellcaster, you absolutely need that at an 18. It's a little tricky when you're thinking about those linked skills. Like for you, your main kind of knowledge skill for your spellcasting is nature, but you don't have any wisdom, which again is fine. You seem like you're going more of a society route anyways. But yeah, definitely just don't like, don't not put your main stat at an 18. And always try to have, one good, if you're a spellcaster, like have your one good attack option. As far as for some of the, like, I've noticed for spellcasting for like divine classes and divine things, there's actually a lot of ancestry feats that give you access to cantrips. And if you're a charisma caster, it's the best because those are something that's called innate casting, which I'm not going to go into now, but that's a good way to pick up a more offensive cantrip. So yeah, I don't really think there's too many pitfalls here as long as you kind of follow those guides and pump up your one stat.
Okay, good.
I mean, you did it pretty well. Like you're just off the bat right now. You know, you're going to be like a really good damage dealer, and can do contribute stuff out of game. You can also, if you want to lean into your intimidation, you can always have demoralizing there at your beck and call.
Don't piss off starving
we forgot
artist,
to put in,
I guess. So
no, and one thing we forgot to put in is what was your focus spell? You get a focus spell, but you start with this kind of one action attack focus spell, which is really cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So, whoops.
All right. Well, cool.
You can use it as well.
So any other final thoughts? For those listening, this is probably the end of part 2. Because we're probably going to cut this in the middle. Any last thoughts? I appreciated walking through it. It's it's a little foreign to me. I have to figure it out for folks who probably have played D&D 5th edition a lot or 3rd edition. It probably makes a lot more sense to them. For me, I'm still kind of picking up on some of these things because I haven't really played D&D since 1st edition, to be honest with you. So.
Oh my God! Wow. Yeah,
I'm really an old school guy. So yeah, I'm an old school guy.
It's come a long way. I would say, just reading through the stuff, the books, or reading through Nethies, you can kind of, that's really cool. That's really cool. I generally I want to play a class or I want to play a certain ancestry, and I build out from there, right?
Yeah, and that's what that's kind of what happened to me. Yeah. So okay, well, cool.
So there's a lot of different approaches. I definitely think it is good to always kind of look ahead a little bit, what are your main skills? And this is one more tip, I guess. If you're not a rogue or an investigator, then you're pretty much going to only have 2 main skills. You can spread them out, but when you get every at 3rd level and 5th level and 7th, basically every odd level, you'll get a skill boost, and then starting at I think it's at 5th level, starting at 3rd level. Sorry, I'm confused. But basically, you start later on getting access to expert or master. You can't take them all right away. Right?
Okay.
So your first skill boost that you'll get, yeah. So at 3rd level it's expert, and 5th level it's expert, and then at 7th level you can start bringing stuff to master. But basically, it's you can spread them around a little bit, but you generally want to focus in on one skill. So for you, it would be a little bit good to kind of look ahead. And okay, what skills I really want to focus in on? What's my kind of focus with this guy? And then later on when you're leveling up, you would take kind of skill feats to support that. It seems like for you want to be good at crafting, so you might even want to leverage more crafting feats. Maybe you get into magical crafting, right?
Sure.
You can
that'd be cool.
That'd be kind of your thing, and you can kind of go into the craft. And then maybe your other skill would be either nature or one of the other, intimidation or deception or something.
Right. Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do.
All right. Well, hey, that's a good. That's a pretty good rundown, I think. We say we do deep dives, and I would say that qualifies as such.
It's hard because there's so much to talk about, and we could go so deeper with all these things, but
right. Well, the book is 680 pages, so yeah.
This is just trying to teach you the basics.
Yeah. So a place to start. That's all it is.
So you think you can make a character now?
Oh yeah, now I get it. Now I could go through and pull up the right descriptions and read through, and I definitely could do it now. And I think that was the goal. And so if I can do it, then others can for sure. All right, well, awesome. Again, this is Carl and Eric, and we appreciate you listening to Tabletop Tango, and we will continue our series on learning Pathfinder, 2nd edition. Later, I won't promise what we talk about next because I think we got to figure that out. But
yes,
so
probably basic rules.
Oh, see, now you said. So you gave
Probably.
it away. All right. Well, hey, appreciate everybody watching. Again, this is Carl with Eric. And he's Eric, waving. And this is Tabletop Tango. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Be safe.
Friends, adventure and intrigue. Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed.